Atif, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Joanna.
So, listen, first of all, introduce yourself to our listeners and to our viewers. You're beaming in from Canada, right?
Yes. So my name's Atif Malik. I'm the founder and chief AI officer of Zarori. We develop artificial intelligence for business and assist organizations through the AI adoption process. And that means everything from helping them understand the applications of artificial intelligence in their organization and understanding the risks with implementing it, because it can be a bit of a double-edged sword. So it's important to have that understanding. And once they have that roadmap in place, we then help them develop and implement and maintain that AI environment.
So, you're the first chief AI officer that I've met. But I suspect you're not going to be the last. This is a role that probably many organizations are going to have to create. Would you agree?
I agree. And if they don't have the internal expertise, then they have to bring in an organization that will help augment that area, because it's quickly growing and organizations are going to need to understand how to benefit from this.
Now, we know that in 2023, AI was the year where we were all getting curious, but really 2024 has been the year of adoption. How would you describe the landscape right now and what we're facing in 2025?
So right now, from what I'm seeing, is organizations are in their infancy when it comes to artificial intelligence, and there's a road ahead, but it's going to accelerate very quickly. And the reason I say why it's going to accelerate very quickly is there's quite a bit of funding coming in from government institutions across the globe. Now, I'm in Canada, but I did meet with Ireland's innovation sector. I've met with the British innovation sector, Saudi Arabia, and I'm very well aware of a lot of the work they're doing in the United States. And it seems like the investment coming into this area is compounding on a weekly basis right now. I'm not sure if you saw the recent elections in the US. They are going to be pulling out all the stops when it comes to artificial intelligence. So, in terms of the current landscape, I would say for the Canadian region, we're very strong in innovation because of our startup sector and the research and development going on in our academic sector. In the U.S., they're going towards a fully AI-driven economy, and you're going to see this competition. I mean, it's going to be a fierce competition, and it's going to be on a global scale. It's not going to be, just regionally or nationally. Organizations are going to be connecting in ways and at speeds that they haven't before.
When you see governments putting money in and governments right across the world going in the same direction, you absolutely know that this is a technology that's going to be a game changer. This is bigger than the internet itself. So for those organizations and individuals who are tuning into this podcast, one question I always get asked is, like, what are the first steps?
So the first steps for getting into the artificial intelligence industry is identifying the specific challenges that industry faces right now. So, are we looking at healthcare? Are we looking at manufacturing? Are we looking at a government? Whatever the industry is, understand any specific challenges they have where our applications of artificial intelligence could assist, and then reverse engineer those solutions from starting from the point of the problem. And when you start doing that, I would definitely recommend accessing national and international funding opportunities, like how we talked about some of the funding that is coming through. Look at partnerships with academia, because there is a significant amount of research and development at the university and college level that is going into this field. And then obviously working on securing commercial partners to help develop those strategies.
Now, leaders have a huge role to play in advancing AI within their organizations. but leaders may not have the AI literacy, they may not have the understanding or the know-how. And so from that perspective, there will be fear embedded. How do leaders need to show up, and what's their first steps?
Well, the first steps of the leaders is understanding what the technology is capable of, because a lot of the conversations I have, even with all the hype surrounding artificial intelligence, people are still, not as aware as, the changes this is going to bring to industry. So understanding what the technology is, and then understanding the applications of that technology in their own organization, how it's going to affect them, how it's going to affect their staff, and their competitive positioning in the market. But at the same time, I definitely want to stress understanding the risks involved with introducing AI to your environment.
Now, you spoke at a conference recently, and I was quoting you to one of my group of students, and you made a really important point about balancing the opportunity and with the risk, and not be too hasty and then making errors along the way. How do we mitigate that risk, and where is that sweet spot?
Well, you definitely want to go in this with a strategic plan. So a strategic plan that will, like I mentioned, uncover the opportunities, but also understanding how the data that is feeding this AI engine is managed once once it is ingested, and once it is processed. Are you using tools in your environment that are, free GPT type tools that are that anybody can upload sensitive data to, financial information, proprietary IP related information, and so on. So understanding how that affects you as an organization is key. And there's other risks as well. So if you are implementing AI without the proper training, without the right validation processes, and lean too much or on the automation it provides without the proper oversight, you're going to end up producing a lot of errors and have to work backwards to correct those.
Now, we often hear the line that, if you don't embrace and learn AI, it's going to take your job. The reality is more akin to the people who learn AI will take your job. But education is key, right? I mean, getting widespread digital literacy, and many people are starting at ground zero. So having an educational roadmap must be key.
Absolutely. So part of what we do when we develop our strategies for organizations is make sure that there is a strong section on training for employees and involving them in the process, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who are going to be using these tools. So when we work with an organization to augment their staff with artificial intelligence, we work directly with their employees to understand their workflows and the processes they use, to see if those can be improved, and then use that as a blueprint to train our AI models from. And what they end up seeing is that that fear ends up turning into encouragement and excitement when they see how this can improve their daily work, and give them the capacity to even take on greater tasks that might be more complex, and boost the overall capacity of the organization.
And with the employees being more empowered, they're obviously going to be more engaged too. What would you say to leaders who have a cohort of employees who are refusing to engage? Maybe they're at the end of their career and they have simply no interest.
I have not seen that yet, and I have faced resistance from employees in organizations who just don't understand it. So what we have done is develop demonstration models where we will walk them through how they will be interacting with artificial intelligence and the benefits they will receive from using this technology. And come on, especially if you're at retirement and we're coming in and showing you a way to streamline your work, I think that we're going to get the right encouragement from those employees at that point.
Yeah, you talk about the power of a real life scenario, a demonstration. But one other opportunity is for organizations to develop their own AI use case studies. So you
Yes.
introduce a pilot, create a use case, and then from that learning you can scale. Is that an approach that you're using with the clients that you're working with?
Yes. So we always start with a pilot based on what the lowest hanging fruit is. So once in the process of developing our artificial intelligence strategy, we work with the various stakeholders in the organization to find out where specific bottlenecks are and where they would like to see this technology applied. We then work with them to understand what's the lowest hanging fruit based on this a list of improvements they would like to see regarding AI. We then work with them to develop a pilot program for that, which serves as kind of an introduction and a demonstration on how artificial intelligence will be implemented and managed in their organization and how they can benefit from it. And typically, after our first pilot, we end up getting flooded with other requests and use cases. So there's a whole governance structure that goes into that as well on how to work with the stakeholders and what the process is to build these use cases and the steps we need to take to actually move to a pilot or to implement AI. There's quite a bit of checks and balances that need to go in place with this, because you have to think about the risk associated with it. And when we take a use case, we actually work with risk management teams and insurance companies and sometimes legal teams as well to make sure that we identify and minimize the risks associated with specific use cases. For example, sorry to interrupt. For example, if we're using a vision system for early detection or identification and some type of quality control scenario, and that customer has an SLA with their client that make sure that ensures that the quality meets certain tolerances of, let's say, a certain product, could be software, could be a physical product, and we're using AI in that scenario. So how does that increase their risk from their customer as well, right? How is that data being managed? And so it's something that you don't want to implement artificial intelligence without.
On the topic of data, we know that gathering that data, organizing that data, and training the large language models on your data is part of the key to success of leveraging AI. But how do organizations start organizing that data, and what are some examples of data points?
So in the development of our strategy, one of the first parts from the technical part of that strategy is to identify where that data resides, identify the volume of that data and what type of data it is, and if it's siloed or if there's some type of interconnectivity or interoperability that data is architected with. So once we kind of get the lay of the land, we then help them work out a plan to centralize that data. And with that data that is centralized, we need to then move that data from its source and put it into the centralized database in a format that is optimized for artificial intelligence to understand and to work with. And that's not just a one-time thing. That requires constant oversight and optimization. So I would say understand where your data is, understand where your data silos are, and a centralized system.
Great advice. Now, we've spoken about some of the risks of using AI, but I want to ask you, what is the risk of not adopting AI and being a silent observer on the sideline?
Well, there's a couple of risks that are, I would say they're obvious, but it's obvious to me. It's not obvious to a lot of people. Is basically the risk of being left behind. This is such a transformative technology. You said it best when we first were speaking about this being bigger than the internet, and look at how much of an impact that technology has had on business. Now imagine you're able to develop these intelligent bots who have somewhat of the capability of working, similar to how humans work, but 24/7 without rest, and using vast amounts of information. And that technology is going to compound weekly in terms of its abilities and capabilities, and even some of the challenges that are going to come with it. So, like we would talk a little bit about employees understanding that this increases their capacity. Well, that's organizational wide. So imagine you have a competitor that's increased their capacity and efficiency using AI, and they're able to now deliver a product or service in your market that is faster, more accurate, and more cost effective to your customers. How does that affect your competitive position in that market? And that's one of the conversations that I have with leaders who kind of aren't aware of the implications of artificial intelligence.
And given the conversations that you are having right across the globe, how would you take the temperature of the appetite of leaders to really lean into AI?
It's varied right now. It's varied quite a bit. Where I've seen organizations who have been in the adoption process since 2018 and 2019, and before this was even something common. And most of those organizations were already tech companies, data analytics, these types of organizations, and this is kind of a natural progression to them. And but currently, I can speak regionally. In Canada, we are very strong in the startup and R&D sector when it comes to AI, but there's still quite a bit of there's still quite a way to go for organizations to understand, the importance of adopting this technology, or even at least understanding what it means for them. In the U.S., they are really ahead, where they have a AI-driven economy, and you have conversations with organizations in the U.S., and it's one of the hot topics on every leader's mind right now. Whereas I'm finding in other areas, it's a bit there's a bit of a way to go.
Yeah, yeah. And, we need all pillars of society to be driving forward. So our government, our business sector, and then civil society as well. Final question. What is your big 2025 AI prediction?
Well, it's going to be very interesting. So, from everything that I've seen, is that the advancements are going to accelerate at a very rapid pace. And we're going to start seeing divides between organizations that choose to adopt AI and those who don't. And simultaneously, there's going to be increased misuse of artificial intelligence, which I find that the regulation is going to need to catch up. So, in terms of the acceleration, we're looking at advancements in AI optimized hardware. You have all of the major hardware manufacturers, Lenovo, Dell, NVIDIA, developing hardware that's optimized for AI. Markets are going to be reshaped, where organizations who couldn't necessarily compete with larger companies now have all the tools and resources to compete with them at scale. We're also going to see a rise in the malicious use of artificial intelligence, because the technology is a bit of a double-edged sword, right? You have tools that you can use right now to clone somebody's likeness. That it means me sitting in this video right now, I could just be an intelligent bot, right? Which it could clone my voice, my mannerisms, my style of speech. And so we're going to see a sharp increase in security concerns that are going to arise from this technology. And you're going to see a cat and mouse game where a threat arises and people start using these threats to exploit organizations and people, and industry comes up with some type of countermeasure. And that's going to involve quite a bit of legal and insurance frameworks to be revisited. Because again, this isn't like IT, this kind of sits on top of IT. So the traditional frameworks are not optimized to address artificial intelligence, security, and risks. You're going to see people advocating more and more for regulation, and some people advocating against regulation, as you saw in the U.S. elections. So there's going to be a bit of a divide there on how the technology can be used, who can access it, and the effect it's going to have. And I like the analogy that it's a chemistry analogy where if you look at the periodic element of tables, and you see all of the elements on that table. There's elements that are readily available for the public to access, but then there's elements that are restricted, right? Like you have to be in research or hold a certain license or have a certain clearance to access that technology, that element, because of the harm it can do to society, right? Of the potential misuse of it and the dangers involved. I feel AI is no different. There's uses for it that can be purposed maliciously, and we're going to see a sharp increase in that as well, alongside all of the benefits it's going to provide.
Well, this has been a wonderful conversation, and I can confirm this is the real Atif, and it's certainly not a bot or an AI generated agent. But thank you so much for sharing your insights and your knowledge with us. And where can we direct people to find you? I connected with you on LinkedIn, so people should surely go there. And where else?
Check me out on LinkedIn, Atif Malik, and you can also find us online at www.zarori.com.
Wonderful. Well, listen, we will keep in touch, but until next time, thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. It's been a pleasure.